Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Talent Empowerment Podcast, where we share the stories of great humans so you can lift up your organizations, your teams, and your community. I am your host, Tom Finn, and on the show today, we have a healthcare CEO, a vaccine and COVID-19 expert, a pulmonary and critical care physician. He's a sought-after speaker, and with all of that expertise, he does it in person, in terms of education, on the stage, and in humble little podcasts like this one today. Dr. Baktari, thrilled to have you on the show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Tom. It's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Well, you've got a deep and rich history that I will share with the audience here. And if you haven't had the pleasure of being introduced to Jonathan Baktari MD, he brings over 20 years of clinical, administrative, and entrepreneurial experience. He has been a triple board certified physician with specialties in internal medicine, pulmonary, and critical care medicine. Dr. Baktari was formerly the medical director of the Valley Health System's Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield and Culinary Health Fund. He also served as clinical faculty for several medical schools, including the University of Nevada and Touro University. Currently, Dr. Baktari is the CEO of E7 Health and U.S. Drug Test Centers. So let's start there. You made a change in your core physician work to becoming a thought leader and entrepreneur in medicine. Why'd you do that?
That's a good question. The long answer is it happened gradually. There wasn't like a overnight thing. I think once I finished all my training and started joining a big group and practice clinical medicine, opportunities arose to kind of do administrative stuff, be on committees. And I think once that happened, one door kind of opened the next door. And obviously, it caught my attention. And it's just like any other, it's like training for medicine. You start training for administrative stuff. And us physicians we're very good at training, right? Because we go through residency, internship, fellowship. So it's sort of like doing a residency in administrative medicine. So you start doing one, that door opens up another door, which opens up another door. And if you're ready to keep walking through all those doors, then you kind of get to where I am today.
And I would think most listeners don't think of traditional people of medicine as entrepreneurs. It's not typical in the path for an individual to go down this lane. How did you think through this, or what were the steps you took?
Well, I think to answer that question, I think we need to deal with the sort of impression that a lot of people have that doctors are bad business people, right? I mean, I hear that all the time, that traditionally doctors, but I don't think that's true. I think doctors are bad business people when they do it as a side hustle. Like if you're a practicing cardiothoracic surgeon working 90 hours a week, you're not going to be a very good real estate investor. You're going to screw up. And that's why, there was this adage that doctors are, invest badly and run businesses badly. But I don't know if that's really true or that they're so committed to their real profession, working, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours and then, keeping up to date and taking CME courses. So if doctors traditionally fail at a lot of these other stuff. So what I recommend, and I tell my friends, is if you are going to do other stuff, you have to clear your plate clinically and focus on it, because doctors are really good at training. That's what we did. We went to medical school, internship, residency, fellowship. We're excellent at learning stuff when we're focused. So what I would say is you have to slowly, when I started, I first did it as a side hustle, but then I slowly cleared some clinical time and, went half clinical and then, 1 quarter clinical. So you have to be willing to give up some of the clinical to focus on other stuff if that's what you want to do.
And isn't this true in any profession, that if we're overworked in one particular area, that unfortunately we're not going to be very good in maybe other parts of our lives? I don't think it's unique just to doctors.
Well, it is in one sense, because doctors traditionally don't work 40 hours a week. So if you only work 40 hours a week, maybe some of these side hustles would work. But if you're working 60 or 70 and you're on call every weekend and, you're working from 7 to 7, that's what makes it more difficult for doctors. Because if I'm a CPA and I'm working 9 to 5 and I want to have an Amazon business in my garage, you might be able to pull that off. But I don't think you can do it if you have more than a job, you have a career. So let's take attorneys who work 60, 70 hours, or anyone else who will work 60, 70 hours and is knee deep into the whole field. Yes, I think any field that is all that absorbing is going to minimize your chances for being successful on another project.
Well, I think it's important to understand exactly what you just said, because finding balance, no matter what you're in as your core career, and then finding your side hustle is what a lot of people are doing today. They're using their core competency to pay the bills, and then they're looking for something outside of that for fulfillment. As a clinician that's moved into leadership, is there something that you always recommend people go to in their own leadership development, regardless of being a physician or not?
In terms of leadership development, I think it's a skill set that people think they can just have because, they're smart. But there's literally skill sets that you need to acquire. How to hire people, how to fire people, how to mentor people, how to deal with crisis in the organization. What do you do when your whole system goes down or when there's major cracks in whatever you're doing? And I think people who start businesses, don't view leadership skills as a specific set of technical skills they need to acquire. They think it's soft skills. I'm good with people, so I'm going to be a good CEO. No, that's not the case. All right. I mean, it's like flying a 747. If you put me in a cockpit at 30,000 feet and say, land a 747, I can't just say, well, I'm a pretty smart guy, I'll figure it out. No, the plane's going to crash. I mean, no amount of your MBA or your law degree or your medical degree is not going to land that plane. You need to acquire very specific skills to land that 747, right? And so same thing with leadership. You can't just get it because you're a nice guy and you know a lot. You have to say, okay, these are skill sets I need to acquire. So I need to find mentors. I need to seek out those skill sets so I can be successful. Because think about it, most people become CEOs of a startup just because it was just their idea, but they're not qualified to be a CEO, or they just had some money to throw at it. But then, which is fine, it's okay to do that. But then go ahead, if you're going to run an organization with dozens and dozens of people, go ahead and acquire those skills because they'll maximize your chance for success.
So what I think I heard is leadership is a skill set that can be trained and educated like any other skill set or core competency that we all learn through our lives in different disciplines and various areas. But if you're going to try to land a 747, you better sure know how to fly a plane.
Right. That's for sure.
So as you think about some of the things that are part of your core competencies in leadership, are there a couple of things that stick out to you that are the rules of the road for you personally?
In terms of managing people, in terms of managing an organization, in terms of, can you drill down a little bit?
Yes, in terms of managing people and an organization. For example, some people say, look, servant leadership is the way that I look at the world. And from a servant leadership perspective, I invert the triangle of leadership. I invert the organizational chart. And I feel like it's my job to support people throughout an organization. And that's the way I look at the world. Do you have a core principle in the way you manage or lead teams?
Right. Yeah, I have like a two-sided coin. On one hand, don't micromanage people and don't essentially hover over them and manage them that way. But the flip side of it is you need to invest in knowing what they do. In other words, if I'm going to train people on, how to answer the phone in our company. I better know how to answer the phone. Okay. Or any skill set that I'm asking my staff to acquire. At some point, I should have acquired it. It's sort of like being the head chef, but you've never cooked a dish. No one's going to respect you in your organization if you yourself couldn't do what you're asking your staff to do. Now, I get that certain things are very specialized. You're not going to be the accountant, and you're not going to go get your CPA. But the flip side of it is you have to have a really good understanding of, what software you're using, what's the pros and cons, what are you getting, so you can manage people who are using that, even CPA software, QuickBooks, or what have you. Whatever the department is, if you could not either do it or fully understand what they're doing, it's very difficult for you to catch errors or lead or mentor or give feedback if you have no idea how that whole process works. And I think a lot of people well, I'm the CEO, I'll let them figure it out. But if they figure it out and they're not doing a great job, you won't get the warning signals because you yourself aren't familiar with that department. Now, as you grow, of course, you'll have layers of people who can do that for you. But certainly starting out, you need to know pretty much as much as anyone you're asking to do something. Again, at the beginning phases, obviously, the CEO of IBM does not know everything, everyone at IBM is doing. But that's when you're a Fortune 500 company. If you have 5, 10 employees or 20 employees, you better understand what everyone is doing and could theoretically do it yourself.
Well said. And I think most CEOs would say, hold on a second, though, Dr. Baktari. I don't want to live through every mistake. I don't want to have to get into the details of the weeds. I just want to lead. How do I find the time to do everything you just said, as well as lead the organization?
Well, when you're 5 or 10, you're just, that's the thing. In a startup, when you have 5 or 10 people, everybody takes out the trash. There's no real CEO. I mean, when we had 3, 4, 5 people in our organization, I answered the phone. I mean, I took out their trash. I mean, that's the point. There's no one to lead. You only have 5, 10 people. You're all leaders. I mean, you're all the same. When you get to 20, 30, 50, 100, 200, 300, okay, then you can lead. But when you're starting out and you're just starting an organization, everyone is the HR guy. Everyone is the, when you have 5, 10 people, who's the director of compliance? I don't know. You. Who's the director of HR? You. Who's the director of benefits? You. I mean, I think people start an organization and they want to model it after a Fortune 500 company. No. I mean, you're only 5, 10 people. Everybody's everything. Everybody's every department. I remember when we first started out, we'd hire someone. They're like, who's the HR director? Like, we're all the HR director. I mean, we're all the compliance and, whatever. If a fax machine broke, back in the old days, I mean, who called the repair guy? I don't know. Whoever found the broken fax machine's calling. I mean, it's that sort of, I guess this is more geared to a startup. But in the startup world, and even until you're to moderate size, everyone does everything. And I think, if my staff has any respect in terms of how we started off, is I think you need to show them that you're willing to do anything and everything. There's at the beginning stages, and hopefully they'll look at that and say, oh, he's willing to do anything and everything. So that's the attitude I should have.
That collaborative effort is so important in a startup. I've had 2. You've done a great job of growing businesses yourself, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I loved when you said that people start companies and try to organize around a Fortune 500 model. I feel like I did that originally.
Oh, really? Okay.
I thought, gosh, I come from a big company. I've stepped away. I'm building a startup. This is going to be so cool. We're going to have heads of HR and a head of business development, and we're going to have we're going to build. Where's my CFO? And then you realize very quickly you are all of them.
You are. You are all of them. And that's that's your opportunity to learn every department and then eventually you pull away as your finances grow, but you'll always know how things work because you learned everything at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder from your perspective, what are the biggest wastes of time in that early stage when you think back? What did you waste time on that you think, gosh, wish somebody would have told me not to focus there?
Yeah, I think early on, I think we should have probably leaned into technology more. I think it's kind of a catch-22 because when you're starting out, your finances are limited. But I think the amount of compensation you can make by leaning into technology earlier on wasn't as apparent to me. Of course, now we're a technology company, but starting out, it wasn't as crystal clear. I can say pretty much every dollar we've ever put into technology, we've probably gotten $10 back. So if I said to you, hey, every time you give me $1, I'll give you $10 back. You wouldn't put a budget on that. You wouldn't put a limit on how many dollars you're going to give me. Yeah, so it's leaning into technology and policies and procedures and organizational skills and organizational systems. So even things like memorializing mistakes and writing incident reports and you always think, oh, we're too small for that. No, that actually is the biggest thing. When you're super small, you have to write policies, procedures, because you don't want every time you hire a new employee for them to make that same 3 mistakes that you just made. So if you create a policy that never do this or always do that, and you put that in a policy, even when you have 3 employees, I say get a policy manual. So when you hire your 4th and 5th, they're not going to make the same mistake the 3 of you made initially, because it's memorializing what you've learned for the next generation of hires that I think is the best use of a policy manual, right? You're really memorializing in fact, we used to joke like our policy manual that we created over the years is almost every single policy is because an incident happened. Nobody sat there and said, oh, we have a company, let's write policies. No. All our policies were written after something happened. And so it's almost like it's a diary of all the mistakes your company's made if you do a policy book correctly.
And you're building it as you go. You're not building it with a chapter and sort of binding at the beginning. You're not building the itinerary. You're saying, okay, we've got a blank page. Here we go. Right. Let's figure this out.
I remember in 2009 when I went to Diana, who's worked for us, and I said, here's a policy because somebody had made a mistake. I said, put it in this 3-ring binder, and that's going to be our policy. And she puts it in there. She goes, well, it's just one piece of paper. I'm like, don't worry, it'll grow. And you just have to put that first policy in there. Never, ever do this, or always do that. And then I realized, so every generation of talent that we brought on board could read this living. Now we have it online, and it's very elaborate. But we started out with 3-ring binders, and that's good enough to start.
Yeah, that's a very good way to start. So let's double click on this just a little bit because we haven't really talked about E7 Health and the organization that you started and that's been so successful in Nevada. And I just want to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about the organization and what really was the impetus for you going down this road.
Yeah, I think, back in 2009, I was introduced to the concept by a dear friend of mine. And I think we initially started off as wanting to open up a clinic or a company that focused on preventative health and wellness, mainly in terms of adult vaccinations. People know about childhood vaccinations, but they are unaware that there's so many occupations and reasons, including travel and different situations where adults need vaccines. And in that sense, we were like a COVID company before COVID hit, right? Because no one ever thought of adult vaccinations really until COVID. But so we really went into every book of business that adult vaccinations were involved in, which involved, corporate health, a lot of occupations, including medical and non-medical. You actually need vaccines and laboratory testing and vision, hearing, physicals, and a lot of different things, and drug testing. And so we went into that business. Student health, if you're applying to nursing school, pharmacy school, you need a whole bunch of vaccines and physicals and drug testing. So student health, travel medicine, or if you're traveling to third world countries, CDC recommends you often get a whole host of travel vaccines. And so we just went into every book of business where adult vaccinations were involved at the exclusion of primary care or urgent care. So we didn't see sick people at all. And we became sort of the 900-pound gorilla when it came to adult vaccinations. We're probably the only company in the country that does this. And other companies do what we do a little bit, but they're also doing primary care, urgent care, occupational medicine. And then we wrote technology and software for it because it didn't exist. And honestly, so I would say, and I've said this before, we're almost like a technology company now masquerading as a healthcare company.
And you had already said that the technology investment was really a $1 in and $10 return because you're streamlining somehow the patient experience, I would imagine. So share with us your technology and how that impacts the experience for the patient.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have 10,000 positive reviews on our website and hundreds of reviews on Google. And I think, yes, it's a testimony to my great staff, but it's also a testimony to all the friction we've removed from the system. So basically, on our own, we actually wound up writing the software and technology for it because it didn't exist, where you could literally pull up to our parking lot, book an appointment while you're in your car, get an appointment literally 10 minutes from then, walk in, no clipboard, no paperwork, be seen in 5-10 minutes and be out in 15-20 minutes. And everything we did to you is on your phone. So when you go back to your car, you can pull it up on your patient portal. So it's really reducing all the friction that patients see as well as my staff. So my staff, there's no punching in, everything autofills and everything's pushed to the cloud. And it really, I think we sort of modeled it after Amazon, right? I mean, you want to go on Amazon, you're 3 clicks away from ordering and then boom, you're not worried about payment or whatever. It's all automated. And we just thought, if there was a way to replicate that in the healthcare environment, where and I've said this before, but if you want to know what you ordered on Amazon a year ago, you don't call up Amazon and say, I need my records. It's there. So whatever we do for you is pushed to the cloud and it's there forever. I know a lot of healthcare companies are doing this, but to the point that literally we don't have a medical records department. If we've ever done anything for you, you have it. So I think and then of course, reducing friction for my staff. So they're working on iPads, no paper, and literally everything's done seamlessly.
So what I'm hearing is I don't have to put my date of birth on the first page, then put my date of birth on the third page, then tell you my name again on the fourth page.
Wait. You're assuming we don't. No, you're talking about what I call the clipboard experience, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Why do you need a clipboard? This is, I always say it's funny because a lot of healthcare clinics say, "Oh, we have electronic healthcare records." Really? So why do you give me a clipboard when I walk in? I mean, both can't be true.
Yeah, well said. And I think for all of us that are consumers of healthcare, and there's billions of us around the planet, all of us that are consumers, it's nice to see an experience like that, but we don't see it consistently like we do in Amazon or Apple or other services where they're just very streamlined with technology. Is there a reason that we don't see it outside of E7 Health consistently?
Yeah, there is a reason. The main because, I mean, think about it. I mean, healthcare is what percent of our GDP? Is such a huge percent. You would think we would have the best technology, but the reason we don't is because there's 3 parties involved. There's, the consumer, the patient, the healthcare provider, and then the third party payer. So imagine, like if you went to a restaurant, right, and you're having dinner and there's a third party that's going to pay for the dinner. So you're having this intimate conversation with your friend or date or whatever, and then the person paying for the dinner is sitting at the table too. It's going to disrupt how organic that interaction is. So when healthcare insurance, government insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, they have their own things that their own interests and motivations, and they're imposing that on the doctor-patient or healthcare provider and patient relationship. So it's hard to write technology to make three people happy. And so the number one person most healthcare technologies want to make happy as the prime directive is the insurance company. Because imagine you're like a clinic, okay? And I came to you and I said, I have a new software and new technology that is going to replace all your billing, okay? But it's an electronic health records, and it will actually streamline the patient experience. It'll streamline the healthcare worker experience, but your Medicare reimbursements will go down 5% because we don't cater to Medicare as much as the software you're currently using. No matter how much better it would be for your patients, no matter how much better it would be for your staff, you would never agree to that. Because what's the main thing you're concerned about if you're in the healthcare business? How do we maximize reimbursement?
Yes.
And so if the focus of software can't have more than like one main focus, I mean, it can, but if the main focus is maximizing reimbursement, that may be at the cost of adding friction to the doctor and patient.
Yeah, very eloquently put. And for those of you that don't know, I used to work in big insurance companies, a couple of them, national carriers, and ran teams and parts of the organization. And I'm familiar with the other side of that and the internal conversation around putting a wall around your own software so you can not only maximize revenue, but also put a fortress up against the other insurance carriers so that it's very difficult for a customer, and typically a customer in this sense is a business, right? We buy healthcare in the majority through our businesses for our employees. And so insurance companies internally look at it and say, well, gosh, we don't want the other insurance company to get this client. We better insulate ourselves with our own technology that doesn't talk to another competitor so that it creates an imbalance in the market and you're unable, or it's just very difficult to move your business from one carrier to the other.
Right. Well, and I think that's why we eventually decided that we had to write our own software. We couldn't take anything off the rack. It was so clear. What you just described is so clear to us that yes, I mean, literally, can you imagine? You have to say, okay, fine, we're not going to buy anything off the rack. If you want to buy a nice suit, we're just going to buy the cloth and sew it up and make our own suits or dresses or whatever. So yeah, that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. We that became clear when we investigated and looked at these other systems. They had other focuses than reducing our patients' friction and maximizing quality, which is all what we're about. We want no mistakes, minimize mistakes, improve patient quality, and improve the patient experience.
Yeah, and this complex situation is difficult for many organizations around the country, certainly here in the United States. And it sounds like the technology has been the catalyst for you to really execute in your local market. And so I understand you to be in the great state of Nevada. And I learned how to say Nevada. By the way, it's not Nevada. It's Nevada, like bad. It's Bada. For those of you that don't know. And if you say it differently when you're in Nevada, they will know you are not from Nevada. So get it right, folks. When you're there, you've got to say it the right way. So as you think about your own expansion and the success of your business, are you going to step foot outside of state lines? Because currently you're within the state lines. Is there something you want to do and have a bigger footprint?
Yeah, so we're doing it in two ways. So obviously we're trying to scale our technology even more so we can expand regionally, but we're about a month or two away from launching E7 National. So that is going to be a nationwide service, and we've partnered with other labs, nationwide labs across the country. So E7 National is supposed to launch in about a month or two, which then anyone in the country, if they need certain laboratory testing, certain things that we can offer through our network, they can go anywhere in the country in all 50 states and access some of our services.
Oh, terrific. So you're partnering with on-the-ground organizations in a network format. And then ultimately, are you expanding your technology to be supporting these facilities?
Yeah, we already are. And then simultaneously, we're also probably 12 months away from looking at, maybe getting some capital to grow regionally outside of Nevada with brick and mortar E7 Health. So we're doing both.
Yeah, that gives you a real competitive advantage in the market as you start to expand outside of the great state that you call home, which is terrific to see, because I think all of us as consumers of healthcare just want it to be a little easier and a little more efficient so that we can gain access to the things that we need at a reasonable and fair and appropriate price.
Right.
So as you think about next steps for you personally, is it just the business, or are you working on some other things as well? Sometimes people are writing books that they want to share, or anything else that's on your mind for the next few years.
Well, no, I just launched a course that's going to go on Kajabi, if you're not familiar with that platform. We had an internal course that I've developed on how to answer phone calls, which is a minor part of what we do, but I'd done it for 10 years, and, my staff just said, hey, why can't you record this as a course for us, meaning internally? So I did it. And then we hired a company to organize it and put it. And then this company that helped me do it said, we could just put this on for anybody, because the information there, it really is, again, like landing a 747. There's certain skills you need in answering a phone for a business, whether you're making sales appointments, and anecdotally through our business, when people go through the training, their conversion rate from booking appointments goes up from as low as 30% to 80% if they follow these rules and courses. So it's called the High Converting Call Class. I think we're going to be live in Kajabi in a week or two. So that was fun to do, but it's also fun because we have the course internally now for my staff. So that was really fun to put that together. That's the most recent thing that's coming up.
And is there something that you absolutely love about your job? Because every time I see you, you're glowing, you've got great energy. It feels like you're really sitting on top of the world here. What do you love about your job?
I think it really developing the kind of relationship I have had with my staff, and the sense that we're all in the culture we built. We're all in the same boat. I never feel alone. I kind of feel like we have this, even if I step away for a few weeks, go to a meeting or whatever, we've gotten to the point where, we generally don't miss a beat. And it's really, when you can grow your business to the level where you have amazing staff who are owners, and just lots of talent and lots of dedicated people. So at this point, this becomes the fun part of running the organization, because, all the hard work is a little bit behind you. There's still challenges, but the fun part is having these amazing people in your organization.
Yeah, and I'll tell you from my perspective, every great CEO talks about the culture and the people, and understands that it is the people that drive the business, and understands that the way you treat those folks and the way that you organize culture and the policies and procedures, as you said, that you put in place to support them are the most important thing that we can do as leaders. Because if you can do that, you build trust. And once you build trust, you can build a fabulous organization.
Right. Oh, I think well said. Well said. You have to take care of everyone in your organization. You have to genuinely care, and their happiness is, in many ways, a CEO's main job is to improve the lives of the people that are in their organization. That's really your number one job.
Yeah, and beautifully articulated there. And I know that people are listening to this and thinking, how do I get in touch with Dr. Baktari? How do I get to know this guy a little bit? How do I find out more about E7 Health and when it's coming to my community? Or maybe I want to go and figure out how to find his course. What's the best way for folks to get in touch with you and get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, Baktari MD is our website, so baktarimd.com. There's, all my past podcasts, but even on other podcasts, my own podcast, or you can go to YouTube and go just put in Baktari MD, and you can subscribe to our podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn. So I say with LinkedIn, baktarimd.com. Those are pretty quick ways to get a hold of us, and I'm more than happy to interact with any questions or thoughts people have.
Well, we've covered a lot today, and I want to thank you for your time and your energy, and also thank you for the work that you do. You do it with steadfast accuracy, and it seems to be very consistent in the way you're approaching the market and sharing the knowledge that you have. So thank you for doing that. You're lifting all of us up in the market with the way that you approach the business.
Thanks for the kind words, but really, it's really a lot of other people who helped me, but thank you for the kind words. It means a lot.
Yeah, well said. Always back to people and culture, which is what we preach on this show as well. And thank you, my friends, for joining the Talent Empowerment Podcast. I hope this conversation has lifted you up so you can lift up your teams, your organizations, and your communities. Be people and culture first focused, and we'll get back to people and culture together. Thanks, everybody.